All right, Shalom. I'm going to start off this lesson giving all praise, honor, and glory unto our power, who is Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shai, Bahashim Rakah Kodash. Yahweh is the name of the Heavenly Father who the world ignorantly calls God. Bahashim is in the Paleo Hebrew, meaning in the name. And Yahweh Shai is the Paleo Hebrew name for who the world ignorantly calls Jesus. And that's what we're giving all praise, honor, and glory to, the power of the Israelites, the God and the Messiah of the Bible, okay? And going into this, I was wanting to meditate, and emphasize more on the captivity of Esau, because I just wanted to say there will be zero sympathy given. Now, here it is. We've been in a society, we're at the bottom, and now we're starting to come back into remembrance of the things that has transpired on the earth. And now it's coming to the time where Esau is being made bare. Okay, knowing that these so-called white people are Edomites and that the Lord has indignation with them forever. That is the only peace, okay, that we have in this world, knowing that there is somebody that's going to be bigger than us, better than us, that's going to stand up for us. Okay, because we can't stand up for ourselves. We have no military might, nor do we want to. This is not our kingdom. Okay, this is not where we are going to find any acceptance. So we're okay with the Lord standing up for us. We're okay with the world believing, okay, that we have no importance here. Okay, but the Lord has given us importance, and the importance of what we're doing is bringing out the history of you Edomites, bringing out the debauchery and the hypocrisy, all right, of your behavior, all right. And this I have a channel, so forgive me for the ads. I'm just warning you in advance. When the ads come in, I'll look for some scriptures. But there's a channel, it's called Black Journals, and it goes in to Esau's atrocities, man. And I've been actually going into these videos and getting some edification out of it, linking it to the scriptures in the Bible, and Lord willing, this be edifying, okay?
In the depths of history's darkest shadows, there lies a painful truth that we must confront. Within this harrowing tale, we discover the unimaginable suffering endured by African men who were enslaved and subjected to the unspeakable whims of their white masters. In this video, we will uncover 5 chilling and heart-wrenching ways in which these men were forced into unimaginable acts of indecent exploitation, their sense of worth and dignity trampled upon in the name of dominance and control. Before we get right into the video, please smash the like button and subscribe to the channel to keep informed of our eye-opening black narrative. Number 5. Rape. One significant aspect of the abuse experienced by enslaved African men was the rape committed by male slave owners, merchants, and overseers. These acts occurred both in the United States and in the Caribbean, where the slave system was prevalent. Enslaved men were often raped on ships during the transatlantic journey, as well as at secret sex farms and seasonal plantations owned by homosexual slave owners. Due to the pervasive social norms of the time and the existing power dynamics, these men faced numerous barriers to reporting their abuse. They often hesitated to voice their experiences, fearing retribution. Is your mind secretly sabotaging your success?
Okay.
What if there was a way you could instantly stop
And these
self-sabotage?
are the things and the atrocities that the world knows about now. These things are not hidden. All right, let's keep going.
Further punishment or being disbelieved. Furthermore, the notion of enslaved men being raped by other men, especially those who were married or had multiple partners, was met with skepticism and disbelief by society. Lack of physical evidence further compounded the issue. Unlike enslaved women, who could become pregnant as a result of sexual violence, enslaved men did not bear visible physical signs of abuse or the ability to conceive. This lack of tangible evidence contributed to the dismissal and disbelief of their experiences. Despite these challenges, accounts and testimonies have emerged to shed light on the extent of the indecent exploitation endured by enslaved African men. These narratives reveal that many of these men were forced to engage in sexual acts with their masters' wives when the masters were absent. White mistresses, often driven by notions of racial superiority and the desire for physical pleasure, would exploit the physical strength and physique of African male slaves for their own sexual gratification. Number 4, buck breaking. The practice known as buck breaking was a particularly cruel and sadistic method employed by white supremacists and slave owners to assert dominance, humiliate, and subjugate enslaved men. Buck breaking was prevalent in the Caribbean and other parts of the Americas where slavery thrived, especially during periods of increased slave rebellions. The objective of this brutal practice was to strip enslaved men of their dignity, emasculate them, and instill fear among the slave population. By subjecting them to public sexual abuse, the white oppressors sought to degrade these men both physically and psychologically. The process of buck breaking typically began with the public humiliation and physical punishment of the enslaved man. Stripped naked, he was subjected to severe floggings in front of an assembled crowd, which often included other slaves. This public spectacle served as a means to dehumanize and debase the individual, reducing him to a mere object of amusement and terror. Following the flogging, the enslaved man would be raped by a white man, often the slave owner or a designated buck breaker. This act of sexual violence was intended to assert dominance over the enslaved individual, reinforce the power dynamics of slavery, and send a chilling message to other slaves who dared to challenge their oppressive conditions. The accounts of enslaved individuals who survived this horrifying ordeal reveal the immense psychological trauma they endured. Sons were forced to witness the brutal rape of their fathers, forever scarred by the harrowing image of their patriarchs being reduced to objects of sexual abuse. One notable account that sheds light on the practice of buck breaking comes from the narrative of Frederick Douglass, a prominent abolitionist and former slave. Although he did not personally experience buck breaking, he witnessed its occurrence and eloquently described the brutalities inflicted upon enslaved men in his autobiographical works. His story, Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave, provides a compelling first-hand account of the dehumanization and exploitation endured by enslaved African men. Harriet Jacobs, another enslaved African-American woman, penned Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl, which also exposes the sexual abuse inflicted upon male slaves. While she does not explicitly mention buck breaking, she speaks to the systemic and pervasive nature of indecent exploitation within the institution of slavery. The devastating consequences of buck breaking cannot be understated. Enslaved men who underwent this traumatic experience often faced long-lasting physical and psychological effects, including depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and a profound sense of shame and emasculation. Many chose to end their lives, while others attempted to escape the horrors of slavery, never to return. Number 3, breeding farms. During the time of the abolitionist movement, when efforts were being made to curtail the transatlantic slave trade and emancipate enslaved individuals, plantation owners faced a significant challenge. The reduction in the number of slaves being imported and the rise of abolitionist sentiments led to a shortage of labor on plantations. Desperate to maintain their economic interests and meet the market demands for their produce, plantation owners resorted to creating breeding farms. Breeding farms were specifically designed to exploit the sexuality of enslaved African men. These men, chosen for their physical strength and reproductive potential, were subjected to unimaginable sexual abuse. The conditions on breeding farms were abhorrent. Enslaved men were made to engage in sexual acts with multiple women every day, with the aim of increasing the likelihood of impregnation. This systematic breeding of slaves often forced incest upon slave families. Slaves were given hoods or bags over their heads to keep them from knowing who they were having forced sex with. It could be someone they know, perhaps a niece, aunt, sister.
Never sue the person who hit you after a car accident. I just got $100,000 for an accident I was in last month.
Or their own mother. The breeders only wanted a child that could be sold. This disturbing practice naturally broke the psyche of slave families, as this forced incest tainted the boundaries they kept with family. While specific dates and names regarding individual breeding farms may be difficult to obtain due to the nature of slavery, there are accounts and testimonies that reveal the existence of such establishments and the heinous acts perpetrated within them. These testimonies provide us with glimpses into the dark realities endured by enslaved African men. For example, in the memoir Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave, Douglass mentions witnessing enslaved men being forced to engage in sexual acts for the purpose of breeding. He speaks of the anguish and pain he observed in these men, highlighting the dehumanizing nature of their experiences. Another account of slave breeding was detailed by a man named Charles Ball, who was enslaved in Maryland during the early 19th century. Ball provides a first-hand account of the horrors of the slave breeding system in his memoir, Slavery in the United States, a narrative of the life and adventures of Charles Ball. He describes the cruel separation of families, with children torn from their parents' arms and sold off to distant plantations. Such wrenching scenes unfolded in numerous breeding farms across the South, where the basic rights and dignity of enslaved individuals were systematically violated. The infamous Pierce Butler, a plantation owner from South Carolina, operated one of the most notorious slave breeding farms known as Butler Island Plantation. Located on the Sea Islands, this plantation stood as a chilling symbol of the commodification of human life. Butler openly engaged in the business of slave breeding, viewing enslaved individuals as mere chattel to be bought, sold, and bred at will. The suffering and dehumanization inflicted upon those unfortunate souls who endured life on Butler Island serve as a haunting testament to the depths of human cruelty. While historical records may be limited, the narratives and testimonies of formerly enslaved individuals provide invaluable insights into the horrors they endured. Frederick Douglass and Charles Ball, whose narratives were previously mentioned, provide powerful accounts of the indecent exploitation faced by enslaved African men and women. Their writings offer first-hand perspectives on the dehumanizing practices perpetrated by white slave owners, including forced sexual encounters and the resulting emotional and physical traumas experienced by the victims. Number 2, castration and genital mutilation. Enslaved African men were seen as a constant sexual threat to white masters due to their strength, vitality, and potential to challenge the hierarchical power structure. The fear of rebellion, coupled with the perceived sexual prowess of African men, fueled the white master's desire to exert control over their bodies and eliminate any potential threats to their authority. One of the most abhorrent methods employed was castration, which served as a form of punishment, subjugation, and psychological control. Enslaved men were often castrated in response to alleged sexual transgressions, such as being caught in bed with a white master's wife or daughter. This brutal act aimed to emasculate and dehumanize the individual while asserting the dominance of the white master. Historical records and personal testimonies provide chilling accounts of the castration of enslaved African men. For example, in 1822, an enslaved man named Cato was castrated in Georgia after being accused of having an affair with a white woman. Such acts were not isolated incidents, but rather widespread practices that aimed to instill fear and deter any resistance. Enslaved men who demonstrated leadership qualities or were involved in rebellious activities were particularly targeted for castration. By stripping them of their reproductive abilities, white masters sought to undermine their authority and diminish their perceived threat. Men who organized and led slave revolts or rebel groups were labeled as women in an attempt to degrade and demoralize them. The castration and mutilation of African men served to crush their spirit, strip them of their pride, and erase their sense of identity. These acts were meant to assert white dominance and control over the bodies and sexuality of enslaved individuals. By targeting the reproductive capabilities of enslaved men, white masters aimed to diminish their role as fathers, husbands, and protectors within their communities, further destabilizing familial and social structures. Number 1. Entertaining sex. Throughout the history of slavery, white supremacists, wealthy merchants, and aristocrats frequently treated enslaved men as sexual objects, denying them agency over their own bodies and reducing them to mere instruments of pleasure. These men were stripped of their dignity and humanity, forced to endure a wide array of sexual abuses and acts of degradation. One particularly degrading practice was the public display of enslaved men's bodies for the amusement of white viewers. These men were often made to line up naked. If you live in a Florida zip code and have 0 DUIs in the last 5 years, listen. Their sexual organs exposed as they were scrutinized, laughed at, and discussed by their white masters and spectators. This blatant objectification served to reinforce the notion of African men as subordinate, lesser beings, and perpetuated a culture of white dominance and black subjugation. Enslaved African men were also subjected to forced sexual acts with enslaved women, often under the guise of entertainment. In these extreme cases, an enslaved man would be forcibly made to engage in sexual intercourse with an enslaved virgin in front of a white audience. This grotesque spectacle aimed to satisfy the voyeuristic desires of white viewers, who derived pleasure from witnessing the sexual degradation and humiliation of both the man and the woman involved. These acts were not only an expression of power and control, but also a means to perpetuate racist stereotypes about African masculinity and hypersexuality. While specific data and names of individuals involved in these acts may be difficult to ascertain due to the intentional suppression of such information, personal accounts from formerly enslaved individuals provide valuable insights into the reality of their experiences. For example, the narratives of Frederick Douglass and Solomon Northup, two prominent figures who escaped slavery and later documented their experiences, contain disturbing accounts of exploitation endured by enslaved African men. It is crucial to acknowledge that the abuse and exploitation of enslaved African men were not isolated incidents, but rather systemic and pervasive aspects of the institution of slavery. The sexualization of these men was rooted in the dehumanization inherent in the slave system, where they were treated as property and denied the basic rights afforded to free individuals. The purpose of these acts was to reinforce white supremacy, maintain control over enslaved individuals, and perpetuate a culture of racial dominance. By confronting the painful history of indecent exploitation endured by enslaved African men, we can strive for a more comprehensive understanding of the atrocities committed during the era of slavery. This knowledge allows us to acknowledge the resilience and strength of those who suffered under such brutal conditions, and serves as a reminder of the importance of combating racism and promoting equality in our society today. As always, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and share our videos to let more people know the truth about blacks and to hear their own part of the narratives. Thanks for watching. Capabilities of enslaved men. White masters aim to diminish.
And as you can see, every time they want to end a video, they want to end it with equality. And there was no equality in these times, man. Okay? Scripture says that, that we suffered, much violence, man. And the violence taken by force. So all of a sudden, with all this atrocities, you know, you if you're not offended by these things, man, the mentality of the so-called white man, now he wants to unify after he's conquered and raped and robbed everything. He wants to unify with you. You know why? Because the unification will help his rulership. If we forget what happened to us and we allow these things, which, by the way, the Heavenly Father, Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, okay, is not gonna forget and put away the atrocities of Esau. Okay, you Edomites, you banking elites. This is your history. Okay. So the Lord has predestinated you a future. Okay, the Lord is all about balance, and at the end of the day, the Lord is coming to balance out the scales, because the scales were always off balance. It was always leaning in your direction. Job 9:24, the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. Isaiah 14:1. Yep. For the Lord will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel and set them in their own land, and the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. And the people shall take them and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord for servants and handmaids. And they shall take them captives, whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors. And it shall come to pass in the day that the Lord shall give thee rest from thy sorrow and from thy fear and from the hard bondage wherein thou was made to serve, that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon, and say, how hath the oppressor ceased? The golden city ceased. Okay? These things happen because of the Lord, and it's going to continue to happen. The Lord is making it clear that this man is our enemy. All right? But the Lord said he's gonna save Jacob. Okay? He's gonna give us rule over our oppressors for their behavior, man. It's not gonna be a difficult thing to have spiritual power and bring back the records of the accounts in your past lives of the things that you had to endure and see. Okay? Those horrible, gruesome deaths that was not revealed unto you in this time. Those things will be revealed unto you in the time of the kingdom. We ain't gonna have mercy on Esau, man. You other nations are attached to these things as well. You were involved with the apprehension of the Lord's people. It's not gonna go in the favor that everybody or Christianity wants it to go. Everybody being saved is not an option in the Bible, and it's not an option in reality. We're in a reality where everybody can't get involved in everything. We're in a reality where everything isn't for everybody, yet when it comes to the Bible, everybody should be included in it. And that's not how it works, thus saith the Lord. Okay? You devils are going to get exactly what you've given out times 1,000. Okay? The Lord has asked us to double the cup. Let me grab the scripture. Yeah, this is James 2 and 13 to the point. For he shall have judgment without mercy that hath showed no mercy. Man, the white man didn't show us no mercy. Look at the atrocities. Go back and play the video, man. Okay? Think about these things, man, as they're being told unto you. Just imagine you living in the life that you're living in now and have to face these things on a daily basis. Okay? It's horrible. James 2 and 13, for he shall have judgment without mercy that had shewed no mercy, and mercy rejoiceth against judgment. And we're looking for that, man. We're looking for judgment to happen to you other nations. We're looking for, recompense. Okay? These people didn't care about us. We're in the worst conditions ever. And what did they do? They laughed at us, you know, degraded us, called us less than, treated us like less than. All right? And they do it continuously today. These things ain't stopped. All right? These people, they're not afraid to show you how they feel about you.
More black people get abortion. Yes. So I look why is that, white lady? White lady, why do more black people get abortion? Because abortions are based on what? Lack of access to resources. Because abortions disproportionately happen to impoverished people. Why are black people more impoverished than white people? Because of white supremacy. So thank you for pointing out that people that have been forced into poverty through systemic racism of the last 200 years are forced to abort their baby more because of the lack of resources to be able to raise a baby. And then you, as a white lady, use that as your talking point to take the health care away from those same women that are suffering in those same impoverished neighborhoods because you don't want to acknowledge the white supremacy behind it all. Go ahead.
And that's just the truth, man. Okay, these people are continuously oppressing us day by day. They're not considering the harsh conditions that, you're in, man. Our kids, all right, has always recognized that their living conditions and their environments, all right, Redlining is a real thing, and it affects the mentality, okay, and the the psychology of the child, man. When you're looking at your environment, man, how can you hope for more? The best part of your day is at school. When you go home to harsh conditions, man. All right? The so-called white man is behind all these things, man, and there will be zero sympathy for this man in the kingdom. And we don't care who cries for him. If he dies, he dies. That's gonna be the spirit we're gonna have. Okay? For the so-called white man,
Following
man.
the Boston mass killing, Crispus Attucks' lifeless body lay on the ground, his sacrifice fueling the flames of revolution. But amidst the outrage and grief, a sinister plot unfolded. A doctor driven by morbid curiosity and greed secretly collected Attucks' body, taking a portion of his skin without consent or respect. The doctor, John Warren, saw an opportunity to profit from the martyr's fame. He tanned the skin and sold it to a bookbinder, who crafted a small notebook from the gruesome material. Warren's plan was to peddle the notebook as a macabre souvenir, capitalizing on Attucks' legendary status. The notebook's inscription, made of tanned skin of the Negro whose execution caused the War of Independence, a cynical marketing ploy, meant to entice buyers with its association with the American Revolution. He was fired just 3 weeks before he was set to retire. And now he's becoming an industry whistleblower. Warren cared little for the symbolic significance. His goal was to line his pockets with gold. Attucks' skin, once a part of a vibrant living man, was now a commodity, reduced to a mere curiosity for the morbidly fascinated. The notebook became a dark symbol of exploitation, a stark contrast to the heroism and sacrifice that Attucks embodied. Today, the notebook resides in the Wellcome Collection in London, a haunting reminder of the callous disregard for human life and dignity that can accompany even the most noble causes. In today's video segment, sorrowful as it is, we're going to delve into the most dark and disturbing chapter of human history, a story of exploitation, cruelty, and the commodification of the bodies of innocent blacks who were stolen from their continent and shipped aboard the Atlantic to a foreign land, terribly tortured, enslaved, and as though not enough, whose bodies were, to the very extreme utmost degradation, used for the leathers of shoes, bags, wallets, furnitures, wristwatches, and so on and so forth. We will explore the history of black leather, the people who were affected by it, and the lasting impact it has had on the lives of black people today. Before we go on, do not forget to support our work by hitting the thumb button. Share feelings in the comment section below, and share video with friends and families to keep spreading our eye-opening black narrative. Also, kindly subscribe to stay tuned in if you are yet to. Let us dive in. Imagine to ever learn that the skin of certain humans were at a time harvested like animal hide, processed into leather, and turned into everyday goods. This is the dark reality of the transatlantic slave trade, where enslaved Africans were subjected to unimaginable cruelty and exploitation. In the early 19th century, a disturbing practice emerged in the transatlantic slave trade, where the skins of enslaved Africans were harvested and treated like animal hide to create leather goods. The use of black people's skin for leather, books, furniture, and other materialistic things has been in constant existence since the early years of the 1800s. It was a disturbing and well-documented historical practice. During this time, enslaved Africans and African Americans were subjected to unimaginable cruelty, and their skin was harvested after death or killing to create leather goods. This practice was particularly prevalent in the southern United States, where slavery was most prominent. Between 1526 and 1867, over 12 million enslaved people were forcibly brought to the Americas, with several million others dying during the brutal journey. Little were we told that those blacks who had died in the Middle Passage, whose bodies weren't discarded into the Atlantic, were preserved to further accomplish the inhumanity and barbarism towards the black race. They had been turned into black leather, a term used to describe the skin of enslaved people, tanned and treated to create shoes, belts, saddles, and even book bindings. This shocking practice was not only a manifestation of the dehumanizing nature of slavery, but also a lucrative industry that profited from the suffering of others. The process of making human leather was gruesome, with enslavers harvesting skin and treating it with chemicals and processes similar to those used for animal leather. This practice, known as the black leather, started in the Americas, particularly in the southern United States, where slavery was rampant. The use of human skin was first documented in the early 1830s, and it later gained momentum in the 1840s and 1850s as the demand for exotic leather goods increased. This practice was mostly prevalent in the southern United States, where slavery was most prominent. Enslavers would tan and treat the skin of these black individuals to create various leather products, including book bindings, wallets, belts, saddles, and shoes. This process was widely accepted and even advertised in newspapers and catalogs, with some companies specializing in Negro leather or black leather goods. The use of their skin for leather products was a further dehumanizing act, reducing their bodies to mere materials for consumption. Companies and individuals involved in human tanning obtained the skin of people through a web of exploitation and violence. Enslaved people who died or were killed on plantations or during transportation were the major victims. They had their skin taken without consent or respect. Indigenous peoples were also targeted, killed, and exploited during colonial expansion, their skin harvested as a byproduct of conquest. The Negro Leather Company, based in Philadelphia, is a perfect example of the legal organizations involved in this gruesome enterprise. There, they would procure human skin from enslaved people who had died or been killed. On most occasions, they purchased the bodies of these individuals from people who were willing to sell them, or from slave owners at high prices. After purchase, they'll clean and prepare the skin, removing flesh and fat, and soak it in water or a solution to soften it. The skin would be scraped or de-haired to remove excess hair or tissue before being treated with tanning agents like vegetable or mineral tannins. Once tanned, the skin would be softened and conditioned with oils or waxes to make it supple and workable. The company would then cut and craft the human leather into various products, such as book bindings, wallets, or belts. These products would be finished with additional treatments like dyeing, embossing, or applying protective coatings. Ever heard of the word anthropodermic bibliopagy? This is the word for the act of binding books with human skins. On hearing this, I bet the questions going on in the minds of some of you watching out there are, is there any such thing? Why would someone make these? What's in between the book covers used? Whose skin is it? What do they smell like? However, here are a few examples of books, among several others, that were binded with the skin of enslaved black individuals. Number 1, a copy of the book, Narrative of a 5 Years Expedition Against the Revolted Negroes of Suriname, authored by John Gabriel Stedman, 1796, was binded by the skin of an enslaved African man named Hottentot.
نشكر مؤسسة حيوانتي في الأداء الرائع في تقديم الوجبة في ظل الحصار الخانق في ظل عدم.
Number 2, a book titled The Poems of Thomas Gray, 1798, was bound in the skin of an enslaved person believed to be from the Caribbean. Number 3, the skin of an enslaved woman was used to bind a copy of The History of Jamaica, 1774, by Edward Long. Number 4, a book titled A Treatise on the Diseases and Management of Negroes, 1795, was bound in the skin of an enslaved person, highlighting the cruel irony of using enslaved people's skin to discuss their medical treatment. Although most of the binding companies claim that they actually used the skin of these individuals in remembrance of the sufferings and sacrifices these individuals made, the majority of them had used it for their own private reasons, earning cash for themselves. This practice was mostly common amongst doctors, since they usually had the fastest way to get cadavers. In the 18th and 19th centuries, some doctors and medical professionals were involved in the use of human skin, particularly blacks, for leather products, including book binding, through various means. They supplied skin from deceased black patients, often without seeking the consent of the person's families. These whites did not only use the bodies of their enslaved blacks for leather, but also the skins of black executed prisoners were not left out. They would bound their own books and manuscripts in tanned human skin, seeing it as a rare and exotic material. These evil white entrepreneurs did even advertise their services, offering to bind books in Negro skins, and were never out of customers flocking in their numbers. These medical personnel saw the skin of blacks as a commodity, rather than treating it with dignity and respect. They felt that blacks were in no way different from animals, so they ought to be treated as such. This practice was a reflection of the dehumanizing attitudes prevalent during the time, particularly towards marginalized groups. The involvement of medical professionals in this practice is a disturbing aspect of medical history. According to a report from the Philadelphia paper called The Mercury, an incredible report was released in the month of March, the 17th, 1888. It recounts the author's interaction with a man who proudly wore some shoe, crafted from the Negro skin. The writer lists his acquaintance with various people who had the Negro skin, cigarette cases, slippers, and matchbook covers, suggesting that he was either taking liberties or ran in some deeply troubling circles. I remember that 2 or 3 years ago, I incidentally referred to a prominent physician of this city wearing shoes made from the skin of Negroes. He still adhered to that custom, insisting that the tanned hide of an African makes the most enduring and the most pliable leather known to man. He obtains the skins from the bodies of Negroes which have been dissected in one of our big medical colleges. According to him, the best leather is obtained from the thighs. The soles are formed by placing several layers of leather together. The skin is prepared by a tanner at Wommeldorf, 16 miles from Reading. The shoes are fashioned by a French shoemaker of this city, who knows nothing of the true character of the leather, but who often wonders at its exquisite smoothness and says that it excels the finest French calf skin. The doctor's shoes always exhibit a peculiarly rich illustriousness in their blackness. He assures me that they never hurt his feet. The new pair he was using when I last saw him emitted no creaking sound and appeared as comfortable as though they had been worn for a month. Their predecessors, he told me, had been in constant use for 8 months. He obtains the skins from the bodies of Negroes which have been dissected in one of our big medical colleges. The best leather is obtained from the thighs. The soles are formed by placing several layers of leather together. Do not for a moment think that this doctor presents an exceptional case of one who puts human skin to practical use. Medical students frequently display a great variety of articles in which the skin or bones of some dissected mortal has been gruesomely utilized, and in bursts of generosity, they sometimes present these to their friends, who prize them highly. One of the dudest dudes in town carries a match safe covered with a portion of the skin of a beautiful young woman who was found drowned in the Delaware River. It still retains its natural color. Another young man with whom I am acquainted carries a cigar case made of Negro skin, a ghastly skull and crossbones appearing on one side in relief. Thus, said the writer in the report, but what does this say about our society when human skin is used as a commodity? Can this doctor truly call himself civilized when he wears the skin of another human being, whether it be black or brown or red? What is the true cost of fashion when it comes at the expense of human dignity? What kind of world do we live in where the skin of the deceased is used to make fashion accessories? But could doctors be the only ones involved in this? Definitely not. The American Bookbinders Company, based in New York, also used the skin of blacks, which they call the Negro skin. A stick of butter a day keeps the love handles away?
The reason butter is called butter is because of the...
For leather book bindings, they would procure skin from various sources, clean and prepare it, and then tan it using traditional bookbinding techniques. The tanned skin would be softened and conditioned before being cut and crafted into high-end book bindings. On so many occasions, the skins of enslaved black individuals has been used for leather binding, Nanny's case being a perfect example of this. Nanny, an enslaved woman from the Afro-Caribbean, lived a life marked by hardship and resilience. She toiled on a Jamaican plantation subjected to the whims of her cruel owners. After her passing, her body was desecrated and her skin was removed and tanned. The plantation owner, a collector of rare books, sought to bind a volume in human skin. He chose Nanny's skin, seeing it as a macabre trophy. The bookbinder worked diligently, transforming her skin into a gruesome cover. Nanny's skin now encased the book, a constant reminder of the brutality she endured. Her story, however, didn't end there. The book passed hands, eventually finding its way to a library, where it remained as a haunting testament to the transatlantic slave trade's atrocities. Years later, a researcher stumbled upon the book, discovering Nanny's story. Her legacy, once reduced to a mere commodity, was finally acknowledged. Nanny's story serves as a poignant reminder of the enslaved people's struggles and the inhumane practices of the past. Amongst others, here are a few enslavers who used the skin of their slaves for leather products. Number 1. Edward Long. Edward Long was a British colonial administrator and slave owner in Jamaica. He served as a judge and member of the Jamaican Assembly, but was also known for his cruel treatment of enslaved people.
That's beautiful, brother. I'm gonna get that. GMS Tazza Doctor Bunny Howard 144K. Shalom, bro. Yabashima Shai Brakatah. Subscribe to the brother Baba Shah. Okay, Zechariah 1 and 14. So the angel that communed with me said unto me, Cry thou, saying, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, I am jealous for Jerusalem and for Zion with a godly jealous, and I am very sore displeased with the heathen that are at ease. For I was but a little displeased, and they helped forward the affliction. And this is a part of them forwarding the affliction. This is what it's about. This is them taking it over the top, man. Okay? Understatement.
Long, an 18th century British historian, is said to have used the skin of an enslaved person for leather products. This disturbing practice was a manifestation of the brutal and dehumanizing nature of slavery. Long, who served as a judge in Jamaica, wrote about the supposed inferiority of enslaved people in his book, The History of Jamaica. He claimed that they were naturally inferior to Europeans and justified their enslavement. The use of an enslaved person's skin for leather products was a twisted display of power and control. It symbolized the enslaver's ability to reduce a human being to mere material, stripping them of their dignity and humanity. This practice also highlights the commodification of enslaved people's bodies, which were treated as nothing more than raw materials for exploitation. The use of their skin for leather products was a gruesome extension of this commodification. Edward Long's actions demonstrate the depths of cruelty and dehumanization inherent in the transatlantic slave trade. His willingness to use an enslaved person's skin for personal gain reveals a chilling disregard for human life and dignity. It was a way to profit from the bodies of the enslaved individuals, even after death. Number 2, Thomas Thistlewood. Thomas Thistlewood, a British plantation owner in 18th century Jamaica, is known to have used the skin of enslaved people for leather products. This practice was a horrific manifestation of the brutal and dehumanizing nature of slavery. Thistlewood's diary reveals that he used the skin of enslaved people to make leather goods, such as shoes, belts, and even a pouch. He treated their skin as a commodity, devoid of any human significance or dignity. This practice was not only a display of Thistlewood's cruelty, but also a demonstration of his power and control over the enslaved people. By using their skin for his own purposes, he reinforced the notion that they were nothing more than property, devoid of human rights or dignity. Thistlewood's actions are a stark reminder of the atrocities committed during the transatlantic slave trade. His use of enslaved people's skin for leather products is a chilling example of the dehumanization and exploitation that defined this period in history. Number 3, William Byrd II. William Byrd II, a Virginia planter and also a member of the Virginia House of Burgesses, who served as a colonial official. He is documented to have used the skin of enslaved people for leather products in the early 18th century. One such incident occurred in 1709, when Byrd killed one of his slaves, whom he referred to as Nico, during a confrontation. Byrd's diary entry on June 17, 1709, describes the event. I had a great dispute with Nico, who was insolent and obstinate. I struck him with my cane, and he died in a few hours. Byrd then proceeded to have Nico's skin tanned and made into leather goods, including a pair of gloves and a pouch. This disturbing event highlights the brutal treatment of enslaved people by Byrd and other colonial slave owners. Byrd's actions demonstrate a complete disregard for human life and dignity, as he saw enslaved people as nothing more than commodities to be exploited. Byrd's use of Nico's skin for leather products serves as a chilling reminder of the dehumanizing nature of slavery and the violence that accompanied it. Apart from using the skin of his slaves for leather products, such as shoes and belts, Byrd's diaries also reveals a whole lot about his cruel treatment of enslaved people, including physical abuse and sexual exploitation. George Washington George Washington was an American planter and slave owner who later became the first president of the United States. George Washington case is a disturbing example of the dehumanizing nature of slavery. In the 1750s, a British plantation owner in South Carolina commissioned a leather saddle to be made from the skin of an enslaved African person. The saddle was listed in Williamson's estate inventory, which included the notation, "a Negro skin," used to make the saddle. This notation suggests that the skin was treated as a material commodity, rather than as a human remains. Megan Rosenblum, an American medical librarian and expert on anthropodermic bibliophagy, discusses how books are tested to confirm if they are, in fact, human leather. Never sue the other driver after a car accident. There's a better way to get paid a way bigger check without having to go to court.
This is Psalms 14:1. To the chief musician, a psalm of David. The fool has said in his heart, there is no God. They are corrupt. They have done abominable works. There is none that doeth good. And that's what these Edomites are in a nutshell. You know, they understood exactly what they were doing while they were doing it. Verse 2, the Lord looked down from heaven upon the children of men to see if there were any that did understand and seek the Most High. What was the results? Verse 3, they are all gone aside. They are all together become filthy. There is none that doeth good. No, not one. The scriptures has already made it clear that these devils, okay, are entangled in their own wickedness, and they're not going to be able to escape for it, man. Okay? Zechariah 2:7, GMS tells the Dr. Bunya, how to deliver thyself, O Zion, that dwelleth in the daughter of Babylon. For thus saith the Lord of hosts, after the glory hath he sent me unto the nations, which spoiled you. Okay? For he that toucheth you toucheth the apple of his eye. That's exactly what these devils are starting to realize, that their atrocities, okay, are haunting them. Okay, Zechariah 2:9, for behold, I will shake my hand upon them, and they shall be a spoil to their servants, and ye shall know the Lord of hosts hath sent me. And ultimately, slavery is what these people have to look forward to. Okay? And finish up this video, and we'll close out, Lord willing, this be edifying. The water for tuning in is about a couple minutes left.
Use of human skin for leather products is a disturbing reminder of the ways in which humans have commodified and exploited each other's bodies throughout history. These books are a tangible representation of the violence and exploitation that people have inflicted on each other. They are a reminder that the history of medicine and the history of slavery and exploitation are deeply intertwined. The idea that someone's skin could be used as a material and then bound into a book is just a really powerful and disturbing metaphor for the way that people's bodies were treated as commodities. Rosenblum's statements emphasize the importance of acknowledging the dark history and ethical concerns surrounding anthropodermic bibliophagy, and of considering the ongoing impact of colonialism, slavery, and racism on contemporary society. One of the most notable events surrounding the black leather was the 1835 case of a slave named William Johnson, whose skin was harvested after his death and turned into a leather saddlebag. This incident sparked outrage among abolitionists, who saw it as a stark example of the dehumanizing nature of slavery. As the abolitionist movement gained momentum, the use of human leather became a rallying cry against the cruelty of slavery. In 1850, the Fugitive Slave Act was passed, which included provisions that prohibited the use of black skin for leather goods. Fast forward to today, and the use of black skin for leather continues, albeit in a different form. Companies like Human Leather use willing donors' skin for fashion products, sparking debates about ethics and consent. There's even a website where you can purchase human leather goods today, although they are closed to new clients due to high demand. And clothing isn't the only thing that these black slaves were made of. Ed Gein, an American enslaver, had a huge collection of objects made from human skin, including an armchair, a belt, a wastebasket, and several lampshades. Meanwhile, innovators like Tina Gorjans proposed growing human skin from celebrity DNA. raising questions about the intersection of technology, celebrity culture, and human leather. As lab-grown skin becomes more feasible, we're forced to confront the potential consequences of human leather, as there are various companies today who still run adverts online for the use of human skin products for leather. These practices are sometimes shrouded in secrecy, and on other occasions they're advocated publicly. Most historical accounts and records suggest that the procurement of human skin was linked to the darkest aspects of human history, including slavery, colonialism, racism, and hateful repression. To close this, the use of the skins of black slaves for leather is a heinous and inhumane practice that echoes the darkest moments of human history. It is a stark reminder of the ways in which systemic racism and oppression have perpetrated violence and exploitation against black bodies. But even in the face of such atrocities, we find resilience and strength. We honor the memories of those whose skins were taken without consent by continuing.
That's right. This is GMS Taza Dr. Bunny. Howard on 44K. Zechariah 1 and 15 in the BBE. And I am very angry with the nations who are living untroubled. For when I was only a little angry, they made the evil worse. All right? Captivity is coming. There's nothing you Edomites going to do. You other nations are attached to these atrocities. Okay? And you're going to pay, man. Okay? And that's the pleasing part about all this is you're going to pay. All right? The Lord has not, and the Lord ain't going to let you slide. He isn't going to let you slide. That's what you look forward to, man. 2 Thessalonians 1 and 6. Okay? Seeing it as a righteous thing with the Most High to recompense tribulation to them that trouble you. Okay? And you've troubled us, man, and we have, okay, the accounts. Okay? All these accounts are stacked up into heaven. All right? Yeah, man. 2 Thessalonians chapter 1 and 8, in flaming fire, taking vengeance on them that know not the Most High, Yahweh, and that obey not the gospel of our Lord, Yahweh Shai Mashiach. And see, the vengeance is coming, man. Starting with Yahweh Shai. All right. You already know that these things are going to transpire on earth. That's why Jacob is the end. Jacob is because Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. 2 Thessalonians 1 and 9. Who shall be punished with everlasting destruction from the presence of the Most High, the Lord, and from the glory of his power, man. Okay? The Lord said he's going to obliterate Esau. All right, after 1,000 years of a vigorous rule and captivity, man. All right, Lord willing, this was edifying. Wake up, Jacob. The water for the precepts. Okay, double honors to the apostles and elders, great millstone. Amen. Hey, we here, bros. We are here. You sisters hang in there. Okay, all praises, honor, and glory goes to Yahweh, Ba'ashim, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashim, Kakodash. The water for tuning in. Shalom. Call all Yahweh, Ba'ashim, Yahweh Shai. For I could think Yahweh, Ba'ashim.